Today is Monday, September 8th, 2025. This is First Alert Weather Plus. Meteorologist Nicholas Snyder here. We're giving you the latest on everything you need to know. Now, weather, not much is happening as far as things are concerned right now, but there are quite a few things that we are still going to talk about here on this episode of First Alert Weather Plus, including drought concerns. Yes, we have seen a little bit of rain this past weekend. We're talking about how that's helped the situation overhead. We're also talking about a warmer forecast, feeling a bit more summer-like down the line. We'll cover all your events that you could be seeing this weekend, zone by zone. And we're talking tropics as well. Tony has the latest on what we've been expecting as far as our tropical conditions out here. We're going to start first, though, with the rain talk that we've seen all over the past weekend. Meteorologist Hannah Hayes has more on that.
Over the past several days, we did have plenty of rain across the region. From Friday morning into Saturday morning alone, some cities across the viewing area saw over 3 inches of rain. Of course, this was mainly the area that saw some severe thunderstorm warnings during that 24-hour period. So naturally, they received more rain than others who only had a passing shower or a brief thunderstorm. You can see some people between Huntington and Charleston got around 2.3 inches of rain, while those east of Charleston received about 1.6 inches. Otherwise, on average, most people saw an inch of rain or less in that 24-hour period alone. But let's talk about why that rain was helpful. Well, we were under a widespread drought across the region, so especially for those who got over an inch of rain, that was mostly beneficial. But there are a number of crops growing around this time of year, and they really needed that water to make up for what we had in that dry August period. But we can't forget that not all of the rain was beneficial. As usual, whenever we get a lot of rain in a short amount of time, we did have some issues. There were some severe thunderstorm warnings across the region, and those did cause damage such as trees down in Mingo County. We also had some minor street flooding across the viewing area, which can make those commutes uneasy for some people. And of course, you can't forget about the impact the rain had on events for Saturday, like Ribfest and tailgating in Huntington were both impacted. And we didn't see any severe thunderstorms across that portion of the area for Saturday, but the rain alone was enough to put an impact on outdoor plans. So for those who are still needing some more rain, are we going to get any more? Unfortunately, for those who were hoping for that rainfall, the next 5 days are just totally dry. We're going to be in a dry, warm period for the next several days. But the good news, it'll be an easy week for any outdoor plans that you didn't get to do over the weekend.
And there you have it. That forecast remains dry for a while here. Unfortunately, if you're looking for some rain, it's not coming our way. This is the current drought monitor. Now, this is from last Thursday. This is before the rain from the weekend came in, but I want to highlight a few things here. Tan area is a moderate drought that you'll see up here. That encompasses a pretty big chunk of the WSAZ viewing area right in here. The good news is we did see some help. As Hannah mentioned, we saw areas of 2 to 4 inches of rain in parts of eastern Kentucky, mainly down in here where the drought hasn't been as severe. But for those of us here in the river cities, in the Charleston area, much of southern Ohio, just didn't see a whole lot of that rain and not enough rain to really help the drought situation as it was a little bit scattered, especially on Friday. Saturday's was a little widespread, but we did not see enough of that rain to really help with the situation that we're seeing. And because of that, it is very, very dry over much of the continental United States. In fact, we'll be hard-pressed to find some areas that are not under drought conditions. The West dealing with pretty severe drought conditions really an extent out there. But over our region, continuing to see a big drought over much of the Ohio and Mississippi valleys here, all the way up into the northern panhandle of West Virginia, down here into parts of the Mississippi Valley here. So yeah, we are struggling for that water and not going to see any of that rain, as Hannah mentioned in her forecast, anytime soon, as it looks to be very, very dry over much of the region. And with the dry grounds, we're seeing pretty dry conditions out there. Dew points in the 40s. Our temperatures reach nearly 80 degrees today. When you get those dew points in the 40s, that means that relative humidity very, very low. In fact, that relative humidity out there, you're talking 35 to 40%. So if you've been noticing the hands have been dry or lips have been chapped, maybe a little bit dehydrated a little more recently, this would be the reason why. It is very not much humid over much of the region here. Only 33% humidity Huntington, 30% humidity Charleston, 32% humidity in Athens, 35% Gallipolis. And with the lack of rain we've seen, we're not going to be seeing really an increase in humidity anytime soon. And with not a whole lot of rain in the forecast, and with this low humidity, it's not really going to help rain chances. In fact, when you have the low humidity, rain is harder pressed to find over the area. it tends to evaporate before it hits the ground. If you do get enough forcing for rain, it may not reach all the way to the ground because of the lack of moisture that we do have. And here's why. Water vapor satellite showing a very, very dry air mass overhead. The deeper yellows indicate some drier conditions here. I'll take that off for you. We're under an area of high pressure. Big old area of high pressure right now with a converging air mass. Again, the air is coming this way from the north, coming this way from the south. And because of that, air converging high up in the sky, you get sinking motion and high pressure overhead. And that's the end result that we're seeing right there. High pressure. And this high pressure is a dominant high pressure. Does not want to move a whole lot, and it doesn't really want to change its place over much of the region. Right now we're on the cooler side of it, but once we head a little bit on down the line, that could change. Some warmer conditions could be headed on in, and that could mean some different forecast options for Rib Fest this weekend. Meteorologist Dylan Godet has that, plus your zone-by-zone forecast for tomorrow.
Hey everyone, First Alert meteorologist Dylan Godet here with a look at your zone-by-zone forecast as we flip that calendar over to Tuesday. And it's going to be very similar to the day we're having for the Monday, but the morning is going to be a little bit warmer and the afternoon will be as well. So you'll need the light jacket for the morning, but not during the afternoon. We're going to make a run at the low 80s. Should turn into a gorgeous day there. Eastern Kentucky, same deal for you. Upper 70s into the low 80s. Southern West Virginia coalfields, maybe staying more so mid to upper 70s with a touch more cloud cover possible to the east. Central West Virginia, we've got low 80s, 81 in Huntington and in Charleston. You head towards interior portions of the state, we're into the upper 70s, even mid 70s there. Now, Rib Fest starts on Thursday in Charleston, and I don't think you could ask for a better forecast this weekend. It's lasting Thursday through Sunday. Every afternoon gradually it warms on up, so for lunch and dinner, you don't have any weather concerns here, with Sunday even feeling like a summer day. So that may need to be a little bit later into the evening that you go pick up that food. But of course, you want to stay with the First Alert Weather team for more updates.
So we are getting a little bit toastier over there at the Rib Fest in Charleston. Temperatures could near the 90-degree mark, and yeah, it's going to feel a bit more like summer out there for the foreseeable future here. And of course, we are remaining dry. We're not going to be seeing a whole lot of those rain chances. Let's talk about it. Again, here's our high pressure kind of setting up right here where these lines are. Winds are moving parallel to that, so we got this flow out of the southwest further to the south, and this northwesterly, west-northwesterly flow up to the north. So that's why that high pressure is being generated overhead. I'll take this off for here. I want you to notice a few minor little disturbances trying to come in out of the west. This one, for instance, right up here, will try to move in for the middle and end of the week. But as I mentioned earlier, with that low humidity we have, there's not going to be enough to create some widespread rain over the area. But we'll watch Thursday, maybe Wednesday night, for the potential of some cloud coverage with this system coming through. With that lack of humidity, though, there's just not going to be enough to produce any rain over the area. So it's good for outdoor events, but I know those farmers, the gardeners, yeah, you're hurting out there, and that forecast calls for pretty dry conditions over much of the region. This is the European model, by the way, and there's a lot of agreement in between the models as far as that's concerned. We have another little minor disturbance trying to come in as we head into the weekend. This one is all the way up to the north, though, and this likely won't get in for next week. And in the meantime, we're still dealing with high pressure overhead thanks to a slowing down of the wind. Very fast wind up here and very slow wind in this general area right here. So that's also generating a high pressure that will be overhead for the weekend. And yeah, that'll cause us to be very dry and very pleasant for being outside. And for those tailgaters looking nice. By the way, some warmer conditions too. It's feeling warm under where these winds are kind of coming out of the south and churning overhead. That's a dome of warmer air. And certainly that's going to be the case. We're feeling more summer-like, as I mentioned earlier, as we head into the end of the week and into the weekend. That's the European model. Let's take a look at our American model here. And again, saying kind of the same general thing. We're in this calm area of high pressure initially, right in here, thanks to the southwesterly wind from the south and the west-northwesterly wind from the north, creating that converging of air, that sinking motion overhead, creating that sunshine that is in place. Let's move this on forward here, and we'll show you that weak little disturbance trying to move in for Thursday right in here, but it's just not going to do much ultimately. It's only going to bring in a little bit of cloud coverage, just not enough moisture to work with, not enough diverging of air and upward motion underneath that diverging of air to create some showers. And then that next little trying to disturbance right in here as we head into the weekend. But for our region, we remain under that slowing of wind and high pressure, and of course that warmer air that we've been talking about here. So a dry pattern is in place indeed, and it's maybe something you're looking forward to depending on who you are, and it may not be something you're looking forward to, especially if you're a farmer or an avid gardener out there. We need that rain desperately, especially after the very dry August that we did have. Here's the lack of moisture we've been talking about too. Back to the European model. The green is anywhere that has a decent amount of moisture to precipitate out of the atmosphere, humidity to precipitate out of the atmosphere. Notice we're not anywhere close to green. In fact, the closest the green gets to us is for the weekend, and it's still not going to be a whole lot. American model kind of saying the same thing. In fact, keeping us a little drier overhead. So just not a whole lot to work with over the region. Again, that minor disturbance trying to come in for Thursday. It is just so daggone dry over much of the region, and that dryness will keep us from seeing any sort of precipitation anytime soon, at least over the next week or so. Next week could be a little bit different, but we'll get to that in just a second. That high pressure really wants to kind of stay in place, and as we get these high pressures moving off to the east, we'll get an increase in southerly winds right in here. So these southerly winds will bring about these warmer conditions, and that's where we get that more summer-like feel over much of the region going into the weekend and, of course, later this week as well. All right, shifting gears to the tropics. We've had a lot of activity to really not talk about. It's been a very, very uneventful tropical season here. And so we'll go to our computer and kind of talk about what exactly we could be looking at here in the next 7 days. This is the National Hurricane Center website here. I want to draw attention to this. No tropical cyclone development in the Atlantic is expected over the next 7 days. The only type of tropical systems that really impact us do come from the Atlantic Ocean. So the Atlantic hurricane season looking good and dry, and it's because of very strong high pressure that's out in the Atlantic. It's keeping dry conditions over much of the Atlantic. Now the Pacific is a bit of a different story here. In fact, we're watching the Hawaiian Islands right here. We could see some tropical storm force winds reaching near the Hawaiian Islands. At very least, we could see some surf issues. Doesn't look like we're going to see too strong of winds reach the main island of Hawaii, but we could see some clipping of that tropical storm out here in the Pacific Ocean. And we'll talk the timing of these winds. The center of this storm still well offshore, but by Tuesday, 2 p.m., we could see some of those winds get pretty close to some of the smaller islands of Hawaii here. And so that's definitely an interesting thing we'll have to watch. Likely the good news is that this feature is hitting some much cooler water. The Pacific Ocean out here is in a cool ocean current, so it's hitting cooler water. It is decreasing its really strength here. But when it was further offshore in much warmer waters of the Pacific Ocean, we dealt with quite a bit of strong wind and a major hurricane, in fact, out in this general area. So interesting to talk about. We don't really talk about hurricanes impacting Hawaii, but sometimes it gets pretty close, and we could see, again, some stronger wind gusts and maybe some high surf over there in Hawaii. But as far as the potential development goes in the Atlantic, again, we'll go back to that. We're looking good. No potential development of any tropical cyclones in the Atlantic over the next 7 days, which is very, very nice. Tony Cavalier, he's talking about what we've seen so far from the hurricane season and what we can expect for the rest of the season.
Hi, it's Tony Cavalier with this special briefing for First Alert Plus viewers with Nicholas Snyder as we play the hurricane name game. We're actually at the peak of hurricane season here in the middle of September, heading to the 1st of October. And we've had some renowned storms already this year. Barry that went into Mexico and then stalled in Texas and created that vicious flash flood which killed many. And by the way, Chantal did its number on the Research Triangle in North Carolina. It was Aaron that swept up the eastern seaboard with high surf, but the rains and the wind staying out over the ocean. Fernand was basically a storm over the middle of the ocean, kind of a known storm, if you will. And next up on the docket, perhaps even by the time you're watching this on Monday, will be Gabrielle, coming out of the eastern Atlantic Ocean. And in fact, if you were to look at the weather maps again on Friday evening, we always look at these fronts out over the ocean for the opportunity for showers and thunderstorms to cluster. And oftentimes during the summertime, some weak waves of low pressure will form, and we can have what's known as a homegrown or an enclosed shower and thunderstorm cluster that turns into a tropical storm or hurricane. But more importantly, rather than looking at the nearby Atlantic Ocean, let's go into the distant Atlantic and go all the way to the African continent, where, as we've noted a couple of times here on Weather Plus, you have the intertropical convergence zone. It's an area pretty much within 10 degrees latitude of the equator, north and south, where there are waves of energy that work their way, in our case, from Africa over toward Central America and out over the Pacific Ocean. And all these clusterings of showers and thunderstorms are coming together where the air converges, intertropical convergence zone. When air comes together in the horizontal, it is forced to rise in the vertical. And rising air is what produces clouds and, here in the summer, showers and thunderstorms. So if you were to count the waves that have come off the African coast, there are many. And any one of these, if it can get enough shower and thunderstorm clusters, and if it can take on some spin, has the opportunity to grow into a tropical storm or hurricane. And in fact, the next known storm that will be named here coming up would be Gabrielle. And even by the time you're watching this, that could be what has been designated out over the Atlantic Ocean. But you know something? That intertropical convergence zone also is active in the Pacific Ocean. I want you to watch this storm system that was hundreds of miles away from Hawaii, in fact more than 1,000 as I was taping. This is Hurricane Kiko out over the open oceans of the Atlantic, and you can see the beautiful open oceans of the Pacific, the beautiful eye of the storm. You can see the famous stadium effect that we've done demonstrations on, where literally if you were to stand at midfield of a football stadium, Marshall playing on Saturday, OU and West Virginia also on Saturday, over top of the stadium, clear skies, and the bleachers around the eye would form the cumulonimbus clouds, which house the tremendous winds. In this case, as of Friday, the winds were 140 miles an hour with Kiko out over the open Pacific Ocean. Now we look at where Hawaii is, and the projected path, which would be, of course, updated over the weekend and on Monday, would be off to the north of the Hawaiian Islands. Worst case scenario is when a storm goes south of the Hawaiian Islands and then west, where back in 1992, for example, Aniki, which is pretty much the storm on record as far as I'm concerned, it came a little more than a few weeks after Andrew hit in South Florida that same year. Aniki hit in the Hawaiian Islands with Category 4 and 5 force winds and produced tremendous damage. This is the worst case scenario, and right now that storm system Kiko was forecasted to go north of the Hawaiian Islands. Just recently, 2 summers ago, we had Hurricane Dora work her way south of the Hawaiian Islands safely, but her wind field was so strong, in combination with high pressure over the North Atlantic. Around high pressure in the northern hemisphere, the wind blows clockwise, and around low pressure, which is what a hurricane is, the wind blows counterclockwise. And can you see the funnel effect that occurred back in 2023? That's what produced not only a lot of waves into the Hawaiian Islands, but that devastating wildfire over in Lahaina. The bottom line is, as meteorologists, we're always interested in not only low pressures, but high pressures to generate winds. And in this case, those winds out over the open Pacific Ocean with Dora were more than 120 miles an hour. In combination with the high pressure, that sent winds into the Hawaiian Islands, which missed out on the hurricane. The winds were 50 miles an hour or more, gale force winds that blew for several days. And that, in tandem with very dry conditions, produced the wildfires that then spread like wildfire and caused the devastating effects we saw just 2 years ago. So a tropical update here at Weather Extra Plus with Nicholas Snyder. Thanks for watching.
And thank you, Tony. And yeah, really interesting situation unfolding in the Pacific. And hopefully Hawaii is not too impacted by that, but high surf can cause some issues. So we're keeping a close eye on it for you here, WSAZ and First Alert Weather Plus as well here. Let's head back to what we're talking about here on our long-term forecast. I mentioned chances of rain for next week with this little disturbance coming on through. Let's talk about it. This is the European model again, going back to this. That system I mentioned for the weekend that was up here now takes a dive down in our neck of the woods by next week. That could cause some cooler temperatures for sure, but what it could also cause is some precipitation chances with this little system kind of bringing through some energy overhead. Still not a lot of moisture associated with it, but there will be enough forcing to kind of squeeze out any remaining moisture that could be overhead. So we'll definitely take that. And what this means for the long term is fairly normal temperatures, we'll say, near normal temperatures over much of the region. Now, I want you to notice how strong that polar vortex is. It's all the way up here in the poles, and we're not seeing really any warm air protruding here into Alaska. We're not seeing any warm air protrude up into northern portions of the Atlantic here. We got this strong kind of force of cold air up here in the poles, and what that means for us is we're not going to be seeing any major Arctic air intrusion anytime soon like we saw, let's say, last week when those overnight lows were getting into the 40s, or right now even when we're seeing those lows get into the 40s. So temperatures by next week should be normal, or at least a little above normal for much of the region. So definitely not a very cool pattern for sure. And we'll have to see again what this little system does right in here in terms of producing any sort of precipitation overhead and what it could mean for us as far as the drought situation. With the dry conditions that we are seeing and the lack of rain, I really don't anticipate the drought situation to get much better. So any rain that we did see Friday, Saturday of last week, and this past weekend really didn't help a whole lot, especially in southern Ohio and parts of the river cities, the I-64 corridor, places like that. Next chance of rain, though, does appear to be Monday. This is the European model again. And with a little system coming through, we could see a few showers and thunderstorms trying to pop up during the evening time frame of Monday, especially over those western locations here. I'd say west of State Route 93 and the Big Sandy/Tug Fork right here. Better rain chances will be out here as opposed to areas further to the east, thanks to, of course, the mountains over here. We get the flow coming up and over the mountains, drying us out. So if you're in eastern Kentucky, south central Ohio, better shot at seeing some more of that rainier conditions. Any rain that we do see, though, will be very light, very hit or miss, and not really going to help, again, the drought situation that we have been seeing over much of the area. Pretty unfortunate indeed. Here's the 6-day temperature outlook. We are slightly above average in terms of that, and that'll come with what we're seeing over the weekend. Next week, I do think we could be closer to average as opposed to above average, but certainly we're feeling warm. Definitely, and we're feeling dry, too. Precipitation chances few and far between. A little bit drier further to the west, out into the Midwest where they see more rain. We'll be close to average or slightly below average as far as precipitation. And you remember, it is the dry season. That dry season means we don't see a whole lot of rain in parts of September, parts of October, and even into November. So rain will be hard to come by over the next few months or so, unfortunately. Super 7-day time. We are talking about a lot of action going on this weekend for football. And in the days leading up to that, Rib Fest, Thursday, Friday in Charleston, all the way to the 14th of September here. We're looking A-OK for that, with those temperatures back into the middle and upper 80s by the weekend. Football is king, though, around here, and let's spotlight some college games. OU playing at Ohio State, my alma mater. Playing the Buckeyes. I don't really think that's going to be a close game, but let's hope the Bobcats rather, can at least make it a close game here to make it interesting over there in Columbus. Temperatures are going to be in the middle and upper 70s up there in Columbus. This is a 7 p.m. kickoff right here. I actually know a few friends going to this game. It's going to be an interesting weather day for sure. It's going to be hotter during the day, so if you are tailgating up in Columbus, be prepared for some warmer conditions up there for sure. Saturday, Eastern Michigan is taking on Kentucky in Lexington. Those temperatures are going to be on the warmer side, still in the 80s by kickoff at 7:30, likely into the middle and upper 80s here with lots of sunshine. So those tailgaters, make sure you have the sunscreen. Make sure you have water to stay hydrated. It's going to be warm and it's going to be sunny. Pitt is at West Virginia, the big backyard brawl here in Morgantown, and that's going to be a hot game as well. Temps in the mid-80s. This is 3:30 p.m. kickoff here. Tailgates are going to be hot. Tailgates are going to be sunny. Mid-80s for your temperatures at kickoff, so be prepared for that. And last but not least, Eastern Kentucky and Huntington taking on Marshall at the Joan. And tailgates in Huntington, look at that high, 87. So if you are going to be in Huntington to tailgate during the afternoon, again, hydrate, sunscreen. That's going to be the name of the game. It's going to be hot. It's going to be dry for much of the day on Saturday. We'll see a bit more in the terms of cloud coverage as we head into Sunday. And again, those next rain chances really not coming until we head into the day on Monday with that weak little system that will be trying to move its way on through. This is First Alert Weather Plus. We give you the first alert on any weather that could be headed your way. We go in depth into the weather, even talk about some interviews. Anything you want to know about the weather, this is the Weather Geek Show, and we are on every Monday, 6:45 p.m. on any digital platform associated with WSAZ. If you want more, Tony puts on a little mini episode during the week. He's got you covered there. You can find those on WSAZ.com in the First Alert Weather Plus tab. You can also follow each of us on Facebook. I'm meteorologist Nicholas Snyder on Facebook. Hannah is meteorologist Hannah Hayes on Facebook. Dylan is Dylan Goday Weather on Facebook. And Tony is Tony Cavalier on Facebook. You can also find the WSAZ First Alert Weather Plus YouTube channel, where we also post some original content, including the Wednesday Weather Lab. If you're looking for ideas for science experiments or crafts for your kids that are weather-related, we got you covered on that. And there may be some new content coming to that YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe to that YouTube channel if you are watching. The episodes get posted every Tuesday on the YouTube channel. And, of course, if you missed this episode live, no need to worry. You can find it on the YouTube channel. You can find it on WSAZ.com. If you click on the First Alert Weather Plus tab, we will be there. And, again, we give you the latest on everything you need to know in terms of that weather, and we go in depth. In the meantime, I'm meteorologist Nicholas Snyder, and make it a great Monday.